Hey everyone, Nathan Long here, president of Saybrook University here in beautiful Pasadena, California. Welcome to another episode of Saybrook Insights. Dr. Amylee Amos is our guest today. She's founded the Amos Institute, which specializes in the implementation of the Bredesen Protocol, among other things, and we're going to learn more about that shortly. She graduated with a Master of Science in Nutrition, Health Span, and Longevity from the University of Southern California's Leonard Davis School of Gerontology, and her Ph.D. from good old Saybrook University in the Integrative and Functional Nutrition program. I think, like me, you're going to find this a fascinating interview and how Dr. Amos's work in integrative functional nutrition is having a wide-ranging impact. This was a powerful interview for as short as it was. If you really think about all of our interviews in the past, Amy covers just a wide range of topics, including the benefits and challenges with functional medicine and functional nutrition to everything in between. It was really, really good. So let's get to it with Dr. Amylee Amos. Dr. Amylee Amos, it is a real privilege to meet you today. Thank you for being on Saybrook Insights.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. The privilege is mine.
We are thrilled. And for those who on the audience, Dr. Amos will be speaking to our board at our fall 2023 board meeting coming up in a short amount of time. So we're excited to have her there. We've got her booked in all sorts of venues. So really good to have you here. Well, before we get started, so our fabulous producer, Phil, informed me that in his conversation with you, we're going to get to know the Amy, but this is an intriguing bit of trivia. You had a real COVID baby, and it sounded really interesting and fascinating, a little scary. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, very briefly. So I gave birth in May 2020, and I was overdue. And so when they were going to send me into the hospital to be induced, they had to do a routine COVID test, just like to make sure. And I was healthy, but it came back positive, which was terrifying. So I gave birth in a negative pressure room in an N95 mask with people who were like basically in hazmat suits. It was a wild experience, to say the least, and nothing like what I had planned for when you were writing out a birthing plan and all of that. So it was pretty crazy, but a good story now.
Oh my gosh. So kind of like the ET setup almost, where you're
Exactly.
Oh my God. And were you giving birth as naturally as you can in a hospital setting? So not C-section,
Yes.
but okay.
No, just a natural birth, but it was a crazy experience.
I'm just trying to imagine this. So you have a mask on trying to give birth. Well, you gave birth, but...
Yep, laboring through an N95. I mean, they don't teach you that in the class leading up to it. Shocking.
Well, I think you need to write about that experience. That could be... How's baby today?
She's just fine and has obviously no memory of that. And it'll be a great story to tell her when she's older.
Oh, that's terrific. That's terrific. Well, I'm glad mom and baby are well.
Thank you.
And really appreciate, again, you being here. Tell us a little bit about the Amy Amos, the Dr. Amos, before Saybrook University. Yeah, for those who don't know, if you go to the Amos Institute, you can read her compelling biography. What were some of the formative experiences you had prior to Saybrook?
My very first career was working in, I managed restaurants and cocktail lounges in London, Las Vegas, and LA.
Wow.
And during that time, specifically in Vegas, I felt like I was seeing the most destructive human behavior in existence, which, Vegas just kind of feeds that, as I'm sure many people listening know. And I wanted to be part of making people healthier and not contributing to the problem, which kind of led me on a long journey towards getting into the health field. And long story short, I ended up going back to school to get my master's degree, and I went to the University of Southern California and was in their nutrition program, Nutrition, Health Span, and Longevity. And that was a truly exceptional experience, a wonderful program. I got to study with some huge names, very influential names in the field, like Walter Longo, the biogerontologist and cell biologist, and Dale Bredesen, who's done, taken huge strides in neurodegeneration. So that was kind of, what set me up. And then once I graduated from my master's, I went into private practice and practiced for several years before deciding that I wanted to go back to pursue a doctorate.
Tell us a little bit about your experience as a cocktail waitress, manager, all of that. Like, you saw these destructive behaviors. What were you seeing that caused you to go, there is something wildly wrong here?
Well, I think, in part, human behavior, sometimes we're drawn to those types of things. And in part, the industries, including the food and beverage industry and also just the greater food industry, actively works to create an environment and food products that are hyper palatable and that make people want to continue to eat them, despite what they might be doing to us in terms of, our health and the mortality rates. I saw a lot of things in all of those different locations, but certainly in Vegas, the heavy drinking was, is everywhere. The drug use, I could write a book on that too. Just all of the experiences seen in Vegas. And just, it wasn't for me. So I had to look, I kind of went to the other extreme.
What was the defining moment? Was there a defining moment where you said, I need to go in this direction to help change the culture, or to help be of support to individuals? What was there, some moment or some series of moments for you that you could identify?
I think it was more of a slow burn, and I'm an avid reader. And as I got, into reading more things and some really great books, nutrition books that I read along the way that just made a lot of sense. It was always sort of an interest of mine. Nutrition was interesting. And as I got more into it, it just seemed more and more that I was destined to be in this field, and knew I needed to make my way out, and also knew it was going to be a really long journey, which sometimes can be a big deterrent to getting started. But luckily I did.
That's terrific. That's terrific. So you found yourself getting this fabulous master's degree, and then you decided you needed the Ph.D., which is no small undertaking by any stretch of the imagination. How did you find Saybrook? What was it that appealed to you about the program that you were in, and anything else that kind of comes to mind for you?
Yes, well, I did a lot of research looking into different programs. And as you said, I went with a PhD, and that was a big decision in itself, to pursue a PhD rather than, a doctor of clinical nutrition or something like that. And that's because I'm very passionate about helping stop the nutrition misinformation that is so pervasive in our society. And I wanted to be an authority figure who could speak with all of the nuance that nutrition requires and none of the hyperbolic language that we see everywhere. And I thought a PhD was really what I needed to do that, and to be able to move forward in my own research, which is an area that I was always interested in, actually conducting my own research. And then in terms of finding the functional nutrition, before I started at Saybrook, I went through the full program with the Institute for Functional Medicine, got certified in that. I'm very passionate that functional medicine is the answer to our chronic healthcare problems. And I'm also highly critical of the functional medicine movement in various ways. And I was looking for a program that would support that was open to me exploring, what are the drawbacks of functional medicine, and how can we counteract that? And I found that Saybrook was an institution that was going to allow me to explore my criticisms as well as all of the accolades of functional medicine.
That warms my heart more than you know.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges in academia, and this has been true for hundreds of years, is the dogmatism that comes out in research. And I applaud you for wanting to challenge the establishment mindset, right? To say, hey, there's some really great things here, but we also have to look at it in total, right?
Yes.
And push against the edges and see what is working, what isn't working. And so with that in mind, tell me a little bit about the drawbacks to the functional aspect of nutrition what you were finding, along with the positives, because there's always a yin yang. There's always a good bad. Yeah.
I mean, the positives, like we could go on and on forever, but in short, functional medicine and functional nutrition, looking for a root cause, that's what's going to help us with the burden of chronic disease. We have to start there with primary prevention, and functional medicine does that beautifully, as well as helping people who are already sick. But I think I'm most interested in, in terms of my long-term career goals, looking at primary prevention. What functional medicine does wrong right now is that it's medicine for the elite. It is very expensive. It is often not covered by insurance. And, the fact that it's cost prohibitive greatly limits its value. And that's an issue that can be addressed. And that I've, in my own research, played a very small part in helping show that it can be addressed. We can talk more about this, but I was able to conduct a pilot study of showing a group model functional approach to prevent Alzheimer's disease. And in that, granted, again, it was a very small study, but we found significant improvements in global cognition, spatial planning, visuospatial processing, great improvements in a group model, which means it's far more cost effective than one-on-one meetings. So that's one issue that I thought, the cost issue is huge. The other issue with functional medicine is that we talk a lot about, disease is 75% lifestyle, 25% genetics. That means the ball's in our court. We can change this. And all of that is true. And it's beautifully hopeful, but it can also put some blame on the patient. Like if this is 75% lifestyle, well, you did this to yourself. And that's definitely not the message that we want to send, because it's counterproductive and it's just not true because of, what we were talking about earlier. There are the food industry, other industries too. They spend, just oodles and oodles of money putting out products that are highly addictive, like food addiction. This is why we're talking now about how obesity is a disease that needs to be addressed from multiple avenues. This isn't just all about willpower. And so I think we have to be really careful with how we talk to patients and how we address the public too, that just because you have an issue, have high cholesterol or high blood pressure, which are highly influenced by lifestyle, that doesn't mean it's your fault.
I go down the road of about 2-3 years ago. I was watching I'm a PBS nerd. So there was a program on epigenetics, right? And the impact that your ancestors have on you today, right? So again, not blaming your ancestors, but saying kind of the sum total of who we are is often the evolution of our entire genetic DNA, right? And
absolutely,
there's a piece to that. There's the food industry, there's the alcohol, tobacco industry. All of those components play key pivotal roles. Yeah.
Right. Social determinants of health. All of these are factors. So we can't put blame on an individual.
That's right. So I think kind of getting to the point, I want to come back to this issue of access, because I had a really fabulous conversation with a clinic. I won't name them here. We're actually going to do a really big deep dive with them in the coming months. But the CEO of the clinic was mentioning the fact that they just can't scale this in a way that it is financially accessible. So they're doing integrative nutrition, mental health, the whole gamut, but it's, pretty pricey, it sounds like,
yeah.
And it's hard to scale that. But you're saying that you're seeing some real opportunity here through group work and that type of thing. Can you speak a little bit more from your perspective around the opportunities? And granted, there needs to be more research. I take that point, but what are you seeing that we could do to create greater access from a financial point of view for patients or clients?
Well, I think those two have to go hand in hand. So certainly practitioners who are in, whether it's private practice or through an institution, we can offer a group model, which is going, if we think about, the fact, whatever someone has to charge per hour, depending on the type of practitioner, and you have 10 people in a group and 1 hour of your time, we've been able to reach more people. So it makes just logical sense. But on a broader scale, we need assistance from the government. to help us create these programs to make them accessible to all people, because not everyone is even in a realm where they're seeing someone who has any functional training whatsoever. But if we had these, if we had subsidies, if we had the government encouraging these types of programs and making it beneficial to the consumer also. Like if there was, if you showed active participation in your lifestyle medicine or functional medicine group, what if they cut your insurance deductibles? If we had things like that to encourage people to sign up for these types of programs, making them available everywhere, especially now that, everyone is so comfortable with Zoom and things like that, that shouldn't be as much of an issue in terms of access as it used to be. That is how we will be able to make big change in terms of primary prevention.
Very good. Well, we're going to have to get you at the front end of the line on this one. This is great.
I'd love it.
I think the biggest challenge that we are seeing is the piece around access and affordability, whether it's integrative medicine or Western medicine alone, right? I mean,
right.
just general traditional approaches, rather. So I think there's a lot of there in what you're talking about, and we need to really push on this going forward. If we look at the siloed nature across the country, one of the questions that came up for me with this individual and their clinic, but also with a few others, was how do we get clinicians to collaborate more in this space? Do you have any thoughts around that? Because I think it goes to the access and connectivity issue as well.
Definitely. And so in the little pilot study that I mentioned earlier, that we had a multidisciplinary team. So it was a 6-month program, and I conducted most of the sessions, but I had help from a medical doctor and 2 health coaches, which was really wonderful because people bring their different expertise. So I think that is essential, especially when you bring in mental health practitioners as well. Like we can't separate the physical and the mental, despite the fact that in the allopathic setting, we still do for the most part. So I think that is something that we need to strive for. And I think down the road, that would be ideal if we had these group setting, whether we called them classes or, whatever type of nomenclature we put on them. If we had a multidisciplinary team, that would give us the most benefit. But from a cost standpoint, even if we were only to have one clinician who was well-versed, and again, we're not practicing medicine here, so this is just helping address the main lifestyle cornerstones like nutrition, exercise, stress management, and sleep. If we were just addressing those, we would be able to make huge strides in terms of preventing chronic disease. But I agree that these are huge issues that we're talking about that don't have simple answers. But I think what's important is to have people such as ourselves and others talking about this and trying to figure out how to make these types of models more accessible.
Yeah, it's great. I think we have some potential partnership opportunities blooming for the future. I really do.
That sounds great.
More to come on that. So I want to talk a little bit about your fascination, your interest, your passion around the Bredesen Protocol. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, you are.
What exactly is it, and how are you able to apply this to your current thinking?
Yes. So Dale Bredesen, who I was fortunate, as I mentioned, to work with while I was in graduate school, he developed this. He's a medical doctor who spent 25 plus years doing bench work for Alzheimer's. He's a neurologist and neuroscientist. And he, again, allopathically trained, was searching for that one protein that's folded incorrectly that leads to Alzheimer's. And we know that doesn't seem to exist because Alzheimer's is caused by many factors, many of them lifestyle factors, and then some genetics and other things as well thrown into the mix. And so he developed what is just a functional approach to treating Alzheimer's disease. And I was kind of just by luck able to get into this on the ground floor and start working with him just as this was evolving and becoming something. So I was kind of, in the right time, in the right place at the right time, and decided to specialize in that. it was near and dear to my heart. My grandmother had Alzheimer's, and I thought this is the way for me to make sure that my mother doesn't get Alzheimer's. So I'm going to learn everything I can, and as I do it, help others as well. So that's what I specialized in when I started my private practice, which was really wonderful in terms of having some successes and, building my confidence as a clinician, certainly. And I've expanded since then, but it was really a helpful way to start to launch my practice.
That is really terrific. Tell me a little bit about the techniques or the components to the Bredesen Protocol that you feel are helping in this space of Alzheimer's, especially. Are there a few things that you could point to that are useful?
Definitely. So we run a lot of tests to determine what the underlying drivers of cognitive dysfunction are. Alzheimer's is a programmed downsizing of the brain. So we don't have enough of the trophic factors and growth hormones and things like that, the energetics that are allowing the brain to create new neurons and synapses. And we have too much of other things that are contributing to this downsizing, like inflammation, oxidative stress, and different types of toxins. Again, it varies from person to person. So we run an exhaustive list of tests to determine what those individual drivers are for that person. And then we address them one by one. And we use all different kinds of methods. So my part in it is certainly looking at all of the lifestyle elements. Some people also require pharmaceuticals. So it's not an anti-pharmaceutical approach. It's a functional approach where you're taking the best of everything that's available and using it. The drawback of it is that once we're working with someone who has Alzheimer's or who has mild cognitive impairment, that huge battery of tests costs a lot of money. So that, like I'm saying, if we can approach this from looking at people, really all people, but certainly people who are genetically susceptible, like people who carry ApoE4, which is the strongest genetic risk factor for late onset Alzheimer's. If we could start working with people who have that, who are in their 30s and 40s, we may never need that large battery of tests because we could address things before they get out of control.
So if we're close on this front to I don't know if we would say we're solving it, but we've identified some potential strategies or tactics rather to addressing Alzheimer's. What do you see the runway on this? I mean, do you think we have the potential of eradicating Alzheimer's or reducing the rate of Alzheimer's in our population?
Without a doubt. And I've seen that in my own practice, and I've seen it in others, my colleagues who are working on this. It's now been the publications have started. So the big people, the people who are against this would say, well, there's no research to show that, and there's nothing. Research has to start somewhere. So we started with a publication, just anecdotal research of 100 people, and I was part of that publication. It was wonderful, anecdotal. So you could say, well, that doesn't tell us anything because, there was no control group. And that's true. But we have to start somewhere. And since then, there have been several pilot studies, clinical trials that have shown reversal. And to put this in perspective, no medication on the market does what these pilot studies have done. They don't come even close. They don't show any reversal. In some cases, they just show, very slightly delaying the progression of this disease, not even stopping the disease. So I think it's worth it for us as a greater scientific community to put funding into this because those studies don't just come out of thin air. They have to be funded by someone. And it's really hard for these types of grassroots movements to achieve that. So I would encourage, if anyone is listening who is trying to, fund a project, fund some more studies that are looking into this because I definitely believe that this is how we will see a reduction in the Alzheimer's burden.
That is incredible. And I think we have the infrastructure from the academic institutions within our network to do that.
Amazing.
So we need to just do it, right?
Yes, I agree.
That's powerful stuff right there. So in our short time, my God, I could talk to you for hours. This is so fascinating. And I feel like we're giving short shrift to this very important topic, but we're going to talk more about this. This is incredible. Talk a bit about your institute in briefly. about what you're doing, how you're doing it, and what you're seeing in terms of success, in terms of opportunity there.
Yes. So the Amos Institute, we offer a self-paced cognitive health program, which is another way that I think you can make this life-saving information very cost-effective. It's a digital program that someone can sign up for and complete. I also see clients who are working on the program who need a bit more one-on-one, and then I do some concierge nutrition for very highly complex cases, Alzheimer's and otherwise. And then the Amos Institute is also just beginning to conduct its own research. So that's kind of something that we're building on. Haven't quite gotten to the point where I would like to be, but you got to start somewhere. So we're working on that as well. And in terms of my clinical practice, I've seen unbelievable successes. And I'll just give you the shortest little example right now. I was working for a very long time with an Alzheimer's patient and his wife, and he had very severe Alzheimer's. And so in a patient like that, we don't see just, them go back to necessarily where they were before this disease started. But after months of working with this patient and his wife called me in tears saying for the first time she walked by the bathroom and saw him shaving his face, which he hadn't done in 5 years.
Wow.
So little things come back. And it gave me chills to think that this man got back one of his activities of daily living. So we do see improvements even in more severe cases, but they tend to be more modest. But to the family, they're massive.
Oh, huge. Oh, that is so cool. What a great anecdote to share and to close out that piece of our interview today. Thank you for that. So as we end our interview, as we do with all of our guests, we have two major questions that are designed to be quick takes, right? So you're not being graded. No worries, but you're super articulate. I have no doubt you're going to ace this. The first question is, what does the term humanistic mean to you?
I think in my profession, humanistic means putting the needs of the human before cost, before, our own pocket. That's what humanistic means to me.
That's great. All right. And then last but not least, what are 3 things an individual or individuals can do to take charge of their physical or mental well-being?
Wow. Okay. Just 3. Let's think. So I think, first of all, moving towards a more plant-focused diet is something that anyone can do. It doesn't necessarily have to require removing anything from the diet, which is always a major issue with regards to compliance. So just eating more plant foods. So that would be a more plant-focused diet, whether that's fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, etc. So I think that's one huge thing. The second thing that I think is important for everyone is just to get outside more. Ideally, if we were getting outside and doing some kind of exercise, that's wonderful. But just living outside more is good for us in terms of our mental health, in terms of our physical health. And then finally, I think something that we all need, both professionally and personally, is to find a sense of purpose. And so I would say for someone to just spend time thinking about what that might be for them. And that's a unique answer for all of us.
Yeah, those are A+ answers, Dr. Amos. You passed your other degree exam. Fabulous job. Yeah,
Thank you.
Before we go today, where can people find you on the web?
So amosinstitute.com is the best place to find me. That's my website, and people can contact me directly through the website. We also have some social media, but I'm not as great at that. And actually, in bigger news, at Saybrook, they'll be able to find me because I just signed my contract to be adjunct faculty.
You read my mind, because I'm like, why are you not teaching here? Amen. So glad to hear that. AmosInstitute.com, Dr. Amylee Amos. Really fabulous to meet you and talk with you.
Likewise.
And learn so much from you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to thank Amy again. Dr. Amos was fabulous. I hope you enjoyed her as much as I did. I think we're going to have some really great partnerships coming out of this interview. Remember Dr. Amos's 3 major takeaways. Focus on a plant-based diet, and you don't have to get rid of anything, but add in those plants, those nuts, those legumes, really to round out your diet. Get outside more for number 2. And 3, find that sense of purpose. And that's going to be unique to you. If you want to see the YouTube version of this podcast, please visit our Saybrook YouTube page. And if you'd like to support the podcast, go to Apple iTunes and leave that 5-star rating and review and subscribe so you can get episodes as they come out. If you're on Spotify, leave that 5-star rating and you know what to do. Make sure to follow us. You can, of course, subscribe to us on most other major podcast platforms, including Google, Amazon, Stitcher, Pandora, and several others. Remember to check our show notes for information on Dr. Amos, including links to our website, books, and the like. And for more about our wonderful, fabulous university, go to www.saybrook.edu. Click on Areas of Study at the top of the page and locate the program of your choice to learn more. In this case, you can find the Integrative Functional Nutrition program right in that Areas of Study. Or simply Google Saybrook University. That's all for today, folks. Thank you so very much. Take care and be well.